You are listening to the EPT Works Listen, Love, Give podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm here to help you create phenomenal health, happiness, and new life with energy, intuition, and forgiveness. In a world where emotional health is often treated with mind-altering drugs or years of talk therapy, it's time for more compassionate, imaginative initiatives in emotional health care. EPT is short for Emotional Polarity Technique, an innovative holistic emotional therapy that will change your life and health for good. You can learn more about Emotional Polarity Technique through my new book, The Forgiveness Doctor, available on Amazon.com. You can subscribe to this podcast, get free EPT training at EPTworks.com, and like us on Facebook. In this episode, I'll be sharing part 1 of chapter 8 from my book, The Forgiveness Doctor. EPT Advanced Concepts, the Human Energy Field, Death and Closure, and Pain Management. It's been over 30 years since I began my healing education. My first year of chiropractic college, I drove my 1968 Mustang, no air conditioning, from Parkersburg, West Virginia to Pasadena, Texas in August 1979. I had never felt so alone as I did on that drive. I cried for 4 hours until there were no more tears. I never imagined where this journey to become a great healer would take me. One thing is for certain. Becoming a great healer takes both inspiration and education. Here's the thing I began to realize on this inspired journey. My education never ends. When I graduated from chiropractic college in 1983, I thought I had learned everything I needed to know. What I didn't realize was I was just beginning to learn about healing, and there was so much more to come. Barbara Brennan is a well-known expert in energy healing. In her book, Light Emerging, she describes the human energy field with regard to fundamental human needs. This information reveals a direct correlation with the changes that occur with EPT and the healing of the human energy field. In previous chapters, I have discussed how EPT positively changes the body's physical reaction and how that also relates to positive behavior changes and physical health improvement. It is exciting to understand how EPT also powerfully impacts changes in the human energy field. EPT is a multidimensional approach to healing. EPT practitioners do not have to have extensive, detailed knowledge of the human energy field, also known as the human biofield or aura, in order to make incredible healing changes in it. The EPT 4-step formula assists in identifying real needs in our lives that have not been filled and to find a way to fill them now. According to Barbara Brennan's Light Emerging, here are 7 levels of the human energy field. Each level corresponds to a particular human need. On the first level is our need to feel good physically, to enjoy a healthy body and all the sensations that go with it. EPT diffuses pathological physiology when it changes the body's reaction to the stressor. That release is usually accompanied by a good feeling. It just feels lighter and good. Self-love and self-acceptance are our needs on the second level. EPT constantly affirms love, respect, and acceptance of self within the context of forgiveness statements and affirmations. The human need on the third level pertains to our mental acuity and sense of clarity. We need to understand the situation in a clear, linear, rational way. EPT provides verbal acknowledgement and acceptance of our situation and our ability to transform through forgiveness, permission, and choice. Our need on the fourth level is to love and be loved by others. The fourth level can be considered a bridge between the first 3 levels and the second 3 levels. The first 3 levels represent needs of the physical world, while the outer 3 levels represent needs of the spiritual world. EPT transforms your past negative emotions, which inhibit giving and receiving love. Simply said, EPT opens the heart to give and receive more love. On the 5th level, our need is to speak and be in our truth. EPT assists in reclaiming our divine truth through forgiveness, permission, and choice. Our need on the 6th level is for spiritual nourishment that brings about spiritual experience. It is also on this level that we meet our need to experience divine, unconditional love. In reclaiming our divine truth through EPT, we acknowledge our divine connection and are moved to greater spiritual experience. The 7th level pertains to divine mind. It is on this level that all beliefs are held. Some beliefs are in accordance with divine truth, while others are distorted. Our need on this level is to know serenity. Serenity comes from understanding that all is in divine order. God is in control. Serenity comes from the transformation of negative beliefs into positive beliefs that are based in divine truth. EPT transforms negative beliefs into positive beliefs that align with divine truth. Now, here's a little detour into the dangers in energy work. Every step, every breath of life is energy work. When you start moving energy in a healing practice, there are several dangers. One is that you will take on the energy, the illness, or the pain of the person you are working with. Another is that by trying to do the healing by yourself, you will simply burn out. The way to avoid this is to constantly ground yourself before, during, and after every healing session. Fill yourself with divine love coming from the top down and out through your heart center, so there is no way you can take on the energy that's being moved. Secondly, when you release energy through someone, consciously call it to God. Send it to the divine or send it to the earth to be used as compost. Direct the energy away from you and from the client. The infratonic by Sound Vitality is an amazing tool for this. Use it to ground you and to keep your own space safe. Use it before and after each healing session. Don't just go pell-mell from one to the next, but actually institute a process where you pray and ground yourself with the divine. Be on the lookout. Be constantly aware that you are not taking on other people's stuff. When I do phone consults, I always have the infratonic to support my own energy. I am constantly in contact with the divine, moving out of the way to let God work through me. This advice is not only for energy healers. Anyone who is breathing or taking a step is moving energy. So the more consciously you do so, staying in alignment with God's divine love, the more you can protect yourself from negative energy emanating from the television, the newspaper, conversations between strangers, cars on the interstate. By being mindful of this outpouring of God's love, you can move through life with purpose and love, healing by your own presence. Next is death and closure. As practitioners work with people using EPT, it becomes evident that often the focus is on a significant person who has died. Florence came to see me complaining of left arm pain. She had exhausted medical care and physical therapy. She had also tried 2 chiropractors. By the time she landed on my table, she had been suffering for over a year with debilitating left arm pain. When someone has exhausted every healing approach, there's a good chance the problem they are trying to fix is not actually their problem. I asked her body, is this your pain? Test. Or someone else's pain? Test. It tested as someone else's pain. I continued to deduce and test to determine it was her dad Norman's pain. She told me that it was impossible because her dad had died a few years ago. I continued to test to uncover the hidden memory that contained the trapped emotional energy. Florence felt her dad's anger and pain at the time of his death because he didn't want to leave her alone. She told me that she was with her dad when he died of heart failure. She felt that she had finally experienced a close relationship with her dad, and then he died. I didn't have to know why she began suffering with his pain so long after his death in order to release it. I used forgiveness statements. I also asked Florence if there was something she didn't get to tell her dad that she wished she could have. She tearfully said, "I love you and I miss you, Dad." I coached her to also say, "It's okay for you to go into the light. I will follow much, much later." Her arm pain immediately vanished along with the energy of her dead dad. There is a distinct feeling when you release the energy of a person who is already dead. At first, it can seem almost spooky. After all, this death and closure business isn't exactly something most of us are familiar with. Once I realized how much emotional, physical, and spiritual relief this can give, I let go of all my previous judgment about talking to dead people. I don't presume to hold the secrets of death and the other side. I only know that we have an energy signature, a frequency or vibrational code unique to who we are. Sometimes when you meet someone and your energy signature clashes with their energy signature, you know immediately that something isn't right. Other times, you can meet someone and your vibrational code dances and sings with theirs as you share a close energy vibration. Perhaps when we die, people we know are still impacted by our energy signature as though we are still here. I feel that explaining this dead people phenomena with a ghost theory is easy, but probably way too simplistic. In the end, it doesn't really matter if there is a dead relative haunting you or not. In EPT, we seek to forgive what needs to be forgiven, to say what needs to be said, and to release what needs to be released. All of this is done in order to free you from an unhealthy energy pattern that prevents you from a full expression of love and life. Denise came to me with chronic colds and viruses. She would be sick in bed for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. She could only stay healthy for 2 or 3 weeks before once again falling very ill. Denise's first issue occurred when she was 23 and concerned her mother. She felt grief, depression, and low self-esteem about her mom having died unexpectedly of an illness at that time. Denise was now in her 40s and a mother of 3 when she came to see me. We walked through her forgiving her mother for dying, forgiving herself for not being able to save her mom, and giving her mom permission to die and enter the light. Of course, this was all very emotionally charged. She sobbed as she let go of her mom and the life that didn't exist. That is the life that she might have enjoyed if her mom had lived. Her energy and feeling of lightness increased before she left her first EPT appointment. She enjoyed her first winter in several months without chronic sickness. Even though some EPT practitioners will receive distinct, detailed impressions about the person who has died, it is not necessary to have a clear impression other than the information retrieved from muscle testing and deduction. It is possible to release such energy with forgiveness statements and the words the client needed to say to the one who died. EPT provides more than enough information through the 4-step formula to walk through releases that involve those who have passed on. Olivia looked very tired and unkempt. Her chronic depression had lasted for 6 years. She was on 3 prescription antidepressant drugs, even with the medication. She said her depression was terrible and she had no energy to do anything. I asked Olivia if anything significant had happened in her life when this depression started 6 years ago. She explained that her identical twin sister, Sophia, and she had both battled cancer at the same time. Olivia held her twin in her arms as she watched Sophia die. Olivia survived. As I began testing for stage of healing, I felt a distinct mental impression of a woman trying to get my attention to talk to the woman in front of me. As I tried to ignore this impression, it seemed to become more persistent and clear. A beautiful woman with long blonde hair was trying to get me to give a message to the woman I was testing. Finally, I asked Olivia if her sister and she were identical twins. She was very interested and said yes, they were. I was confused because they seemed to be so different. While Olivia had short, messy, dark hair, the woman in my mind had long, beautiful blonde hair. She was very well taken care of. These two did not look anything alike to me. Finally, I confessed to Olivia that I was getting an impression from her sister. Olivia asked if I could see her sister and what did she look like. With hesitation, I described the beautiful blonde woman. My client lit up and burst into tears as she told me her sister had always dyed her long hair blonde and looked beautiful. Even though there was a dead person involved, the basics of EPT was all I needed to forgive what needed to be forgiven, to release what needed to be released, and to say what needed to be said so that this woman was healed of her depression and able to get off all her medication. I have to admit, these types of EPT encounters are still a little weird for me, but I have found that walking through the 4-step formula works in these energy situations to evoke tremendous healing relief on every level, setting the person free to live their life in more love. For knowledge seekers, here are the steps an EPT practitioner will go through with the energy of death and closure. First ask, is the energy of that person, mom, still here with the client? Test. A weak muscle test indicates yes. I do not choose to engage in long discussions about exactly what that energy is. I am only interested in assisting the client in regaining their own healthy flow of energy with regard to present time consciousness. Next, focus. Tell the client, think about how your mom feels and test. The muscle test weak with that thought. 2.2 to an organ to identify the emotion. Next, find it. Use muscle testing and deduction to construct the hidden memory in the form of a statement. Example, mom feels sadness at the time of her death. Then you want to muscle test reasons. Because she couldn't stay alive, test. Because she died, test. Because you still need her, test. The muscle will test weak on the correct reason. Mom feels sadness at the time of her death because you still need her. Next, fix it. Use a magnet over an organ and a magnet over the forehead. As the client thinks about the statement, gently squeeze the sides of the head 3 times on inhalation. Now you're ready for forgiveness. Coach the client through targeted forgiveness statements and affirmations. You may have to coach the client to give her mom permission to feel joy and happiness moving into the light. Completing the steps above always results in a dramatic energy shift around the client. There will be a no response muscle will test strong when you ask, is the energy of this person, mom, still here with the client? If there is still a yes response after you have walked through EPT, ask the client to pretend mom is in the room. There are words that still need to be said. Sometimes the clients know what needs to be said and other times they don't. Usually what needs to be said is very simple. I love you. I miss you. I'm doing fine. I'm glad you were my mother. I forgive you, I'll be safe, I'll take care of Dad, or you can go. Using EPT for pain management. I am still thrilled when all I do is walk a person through forgiveness statements and years of chronic pain just disappear. I have so many different case studies where this has happened. Here are two of my favorite stories of how EPT quickly and easily alleviated chronic pain for good. Alfred had resorted to bilateral hip replacement surgery due to extreme pain and joint deterioration. 1 year after his surgery, Alfred was still suffering with pain that severely limited his personal mobility. His doctors and physiotherapists could not tell him why he was still in pain. From their perspective, he was completely recovered from the surgery and should feel great. In my first EPT appointment with him, I discovered a significant trauma memory from age 11. Alfred was hit by a car while he was on a sled on ice. The hit was sufficient to send him flying and bouncing on the hard ice for a good 100 feet or so and break his pelvis. He still remembered his painful recovery. Once we identified the root memory of pain, through forgiveness we were able to release the pain from the memory, and Alfred's current pain disappeared before he left my office. He was delighted to report on his follow-up visit that he was no longer having hip pain and was even able to mow his lawn. Ellen suffered from chronic neck pain that often radiated into her head, creating terrible headaches for years. As an RN, she knew the unwanted side effects that come with long-term use of prescription painkillers, so she went to a pain specialist, seeking a more permanent solution to her pain. The pain specialist recommended an experimental surgical procedure that involved altering her neck bones in a way to eliminate the chronic irritation. Ellen thought it made sense, and she had the surgery done. 6 months later, her pain was worse than ever, and she was still stuck with resorting too often to using painkillers. Her pain specialist next suggested that she undergo a series of spinal injections in her neck to interfere with the function of the nerves that were eliciting the pain in her neck. Again, Ellen submitted to the invasive procedure recommended by the pain expert doctor. Unfortunately, after the first injection procedure, her pain actually got worse. It was at this point she decided to try EPT. I discovered childhood memories that were full of emotional pain, fear, and loss in her life. None of these memories had abuse. They were just those moments where a child must carry for herself what an adult should carry for them. During her first session of EPT, her neck pain vanished. The suffering she carried in her neck never returned. As a chiropractor, it is easy for me to think in terms of joint dysfunction, tissue trauma, and tissue inflammation causing pain. It still surprises me when immediate physical changes occur in the space of forgiveness. It reminds me of the scripture in Matthew where Jesus asks the teachers of the law, which is easier to say, "Your sins are forgiven," or to say, "Get up and walk"? After he forgives a paralyzed man of his sin, he then tells them, "Get up and take your mat and go home." Then the man got up and went home. It says that when the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe and they praised God who had given such authority to man. This is the awe and gratitude I feel when forgiveness releases another person from suffering. For knowledge seekers, 5 techniques to heal chronic pain and suffering. EPT works so well to release physical pain and suffering that I want to share these techniques. No matter what technique you choose, start by asking the client to rate his pain on a scale of 1 to 10. When your client has a physical pain such as plantar fasciitis, ask the client to touch the pain. Muscle test is weak. 2 point to the client's emotional points. Muscle test is strong. Begin muscle testing to find the statement that represents the hidden memory. Fixing it and forgiveness follows. Then re-rate the pain on the SUD scale. Another approach to releasing physical pain with EPT is to ask the client to think of the sensation of the pain rather than the location of the pain. Ask the client to bring the sensation of the pain to mind. The muscle will test weak. 2 point to the client's emotional points. Muscle test is strong, and proceed to do EPT. You can also start by asking the body, with regard to this pain, what stage of healing are you in? Another way to release physical pain with EPT is to ask the body, does this pain represent a negative emotion you are unwilling to let go of? Muscle test is weak. Next, 2 point to an organ with your hand. Muscle test is strong. Remove your hand from the client's organs, such as the liver, and identify the emotion by verbally asking, is it anger? Test. Is it resentment? Test. The client's muscle will test weak on the correct emotion. Then ask the body, was there an earlier time when you were unwilling to let go of this anger? Test. A weak muscle response means there was an earlier time, and a strong muscle response means there was not an earlier time. If you find that there was an earlier time, ask the body further questions while muscle testing to determine the earlier time the client was unwilling to let go of the emotion. An earlier time usually indicates there was an actual trauma. Ask the body and the client about the existence of an earlier trauma that caused pain. Empathy pain is the most often missed cause of unresolved pain. Simply ask the body, is this your pain? Test. Or someone else's pain? Test. Deduction and muscle testing is used to determine whose pain it is. Forgiveness statements are used to correct the energy flow and eliminate the pain. Faye had been suffering with shin pain that kept her from walking without stress and pain. Resentment was the negative emotion she was unwilling to let go of. The earlier time Faye had felt unwilling to let go of this negative emotion was at age 6. I asked her if she remembered getting hurt at age 6. She immediately remembered a backyard race she was in with the neighborhood kids. She would have won the race if not for a sharp stick somehow jamming into her shin, causing terrible pain. She fell down to hold her leg, causing her to finish last in the race. With EPT and very specific forgiveness statements, her resentment, trauma, and pain were eliminated and did not come back. Pain that seems to have no cause will often go back to an original event where an actual physical trauma took place. Pain is merely communication. When you touch a hot stove, you learn, don't touch a hot stove. I believe our bodies are much more sophisticated in using pain as a means of communication than most people realize. Primarily, pain calls our attention to love. Ultimately, you don't touch a hot stove because you love yourself enough to avoid intentional pain. The sophistication of this communication is demonstrated when the pain in one person is actually a message from another person who is in need of loving energy. Medically, this kind of pain is called sympathy or empathy pain. An example of this is seen in a husband who experiences morning sickness when his wife is pregnant. The husband's morning sickness is a message from his wife that she needs loving energy. By pouring love to his wife, the husband can eliminate this experience of her morning sickness. EPT is an exceptional tool that can be used to identify and demonstrate this reality in body communication through muscle testing and forgiveness. The first question the practitioner must ask the body is this your pain? Test. Or someone else's pain? Test. It doesn't seem logical to think that the pain you are feeling is not your pain, but someone else's pain. This situation arises when you identify so closely with another person that you actually feel their symptoms or pain. This explains why good therapies such as chiropractic adjustments, physiotherapy, or even medication don't seem to be working as well as you would like. If the pain is actually your father's pain, then using therapeutic solutions on you will not be as effective as it would be on your father, the one to whom the pain belongs. I learned about this phenomenon when I was working with Julie. Julie really loved having me as a holistic doctor. I helped her heal chronic fatigue syndrome, headaches, and low back pain. The one symptom I could not seem to change was a piercing, burning pain located on her back between her shoulders. As a chiropractor, I was frustrated that no matter what therapy I used to alleviate Julie's mid-back pain, it would not change. After a couple of years, yes, years of trying everything from adjustments, magnet therapy, nutrition, electromagnetic therapy, and EPT, I gave up. I suggested that she get an appointment at a very pretentious and prestigious spine institute, and she agreed to go. I secretly wondered if she had something terrible like a tumor or a spinal deformity. 3 months later, she dropped into my office to tell me the medical care didn't make any difference either. She asked me if I would try again. As I walked her back to the treatment room, I wondered what else I could do. Everything I had tried had been a fail. As she raised her arm to be muscle tested, I thought of a new question to ask her body. As she thought of her pain, I asked her body, is this her pain test or someone else's pain test? Her muscle tested weak on someone else's pain. I continued to deduce by asking, is it a friend test or a family member test? Through testing, I discovered she was actually feeling her brother's pain and not her own pain. I asked her if her brother had any physical pain. She had no idea. I remembered hearing stories about a woman waking up with chest pain in the middle of the night only to discover the next day that her husband, off on a trip without her, had died of a heart attack at the same time she woke up in the night. Or a mother complaining for weeks about her sore arm only to find out that her son had lost his arm serving in the military overseas. So I asked Julie if she knew of any pain her brother had ever experienced in his whole life. With an aha look on her face, she revealed, when we were teens, my brother William used to break out in boils on his back. I used to help him lance the boils. It was really painful. I asked her, where on his back did he break out? She replied, right between his shoulders, in the same place I feel pain on my back right now. It seemed just a little too coincidental that she was experiencing back pain over the same area she remembered her brother having pain in years before. Not knowing exactly what to do next, I asked myself, what would you have to believe to take on the pain of another person? Well, you might believe that if you love someone, you have to take on their pain. Or you could believe that love is taking pain rather than giving loving energy. You may also believe that you are responsible for the pain others experience. I formed my forgiveness statements with these possibilities in mind. I forgive myself for believing I can't love my brother without taking on his pain. I forgive my brother for not taking responsibility for his own pain. I give my brother permission to forgive me for letting go of his pain and letting him be responsible for it. After these statements, I adjusted Julie's mid-back. Though I had attempted this many times before, this was the first time I was actually able to mobilize her spinal vertebra with a chiropractic adjustment. She felt immediate relief and the pain vanished. I suggested that she should bring her brother William to mind once or twice a day and send him loving energy in the following way. I told her to visualize a green light flowing from her heart to his until it lit up his heart in a green light. Having never done this with anyone before, I was a bit skeptical that I had finally broken the code on Julie's unresolved back pain. I was nervous when she came back for a follow-up visit 3 weeks later. She walked into my office with a huge grin on her face. Her pain had not returned. She was beyond thrilled. She told me that she had been faithfully practicing flowing the energy of love to her brother. By changing her belief about love and loving relationships, she was able to eliminate her energetic pattern of taking the pain of her brother and replace it with a new energetic pattern of actually giving love. Julie's old belief was, I can't love without taking on his pain. Somewhere in her history, she had learned that loving means taking on pain, rather than love meaning giving, caring, and compassion. Her limiting belief dictated that she automatically take on pain when she is in the mindset of loving. I helped Sheila to heal chronic physical illness that was the result of years of childhood sexual abuse. She was healthier than she had ever been, and her only complaint was neck pain that required her to go to Dr. Henry, her regular chiropractor, once or twice a week. The adjustments always seemed to alleviate the pain, so she had never considered it to be an emotional issue. Now that she was no longer chronically ill, she asked me to see if EPT could also eliminate her neck pain. I asked if the pain was her pain or someone else's. It was her mom's pain. She told me her mom was in her 90s and still lived on her own. Sheila described how her mom would call her quite often during the day and keep her on the phone in long conversations. She said she loved her mom but was frustrated with always getting interrupted while she had other things to do. I coached Sheila through forgiveness statement and then told her to bring her mom to mind and send her love. Using imagination and feeling, I told her, love your mom the way she loves to be loved by you. It only takes 60 to 90 seconds to do this. 6 weeks later, Sheila told me her pain was gone, and she had not had to see Dr. Henry, her chiropractor. She also reported that her mom had not called her for 2 weeks straight. It was so unusual for her mom not to call that Sheila went to her mom's house to check on her. Her mom was happy and well. Sheila continued to connect with her mom, sending her love every time her neck began to feel a little out of sorts. Her intentional loving connection with her mom would immediately alleviate her neck stress. Dennis was a gifted natural doctor and herbalist. He helped a lot of people, and so he had a very busy practice. He had been struggling with overwhelming fatigue that was interfering with his ability to do his work. By 3 or 4 in the afternoon, he was exhausted and unable to move or operate normally for the rest of the day. At the time he came to my office, he had been suffering for almost a year. Because he was really good at helping others with all kinds of health problems, he had already tried a number of natural health care approaches to fix his problem. As those hadn't given him the results he sought, a mutual friend had referred him to me. Dennis thought I would recommend a supplement regimen that would finally help. I started by asking his body if this was his problem or someone else's. It was his mom's problem. Dennis was confused about this since he wasn't at all close to his mom. He didn't realize that his fatigue had started right about the time his mom had a health crisis that landed her in the hospital. After almost a year, she was still not fully recovered. She also lived 3 states away from Dennis and his wife. I did EPT and walked Dennis through forgiveness statements. I told him to take a minute at least 3 times a day to bring his mother to mind and send her love. Since he had never known a true loving relationship with his mom, even in his childhood, Dennis had to imagine good memories of love with his mom. Inside of 2 weeks, Dennis was fully recovered. Joyce was 58 and had been suffering with crippling arthritis for about 5 years. She had tried every manner of traditional medicine, including gold injections, to halt the progression of her crippling arthritis. Her fear was that she would be soon unable to do simple things like hold a glass of water and get dressed and undressed. The pain in her hands, shoulders, and elbows was excruciating, and her mobility was very restricted. It was impossible for me to muscle test using her arm because the restriction of her shoulder joints wouldn't allow her to hold her arm up and out to the side. When a person is unable to be tested using her own arm, it is possible to use a surrogate tester. The surrogate tester stands beside the person being tested, and their arm is used as a proxy for the person being tested. I used my office manager as a surrogate for Joyce. I asked if the pain was Joyce's pain or someone else's. It was Joyce's mother's pain. Joyce looked dumbfounded as she told me her mother was dead. When I asked how her mother died, Joyce started crying. She told me her mother had crippling arthritis in her 50s and was afraid that she would have to be cared for, so she took her own life at age 59. Joyce was feeling all the pain of her mother had experienced before dying. I did EPT to release her mother's energy and to release Joyce from believing she must carry the pain for her mother. Joyce's pain was immediately reduced, and she was also able to lift her arms. All three of us, Joyce, my office manager, and I, were sort of shocked and speechless at the instant results we witnessed. I managed to tell Joyce that results don't always happen this fast, but I'm grateful when it does. The next week, when Joyce came in for her second visit, she was totally pain-free and her mobility was restored. I've known Joyce for over 15 years, and her pain and loss of mobility never did return. In Scripture it says, "Perfect love casts out fear." I believe love is an energy that is created by God and is perfect. You have the power to choose to flow this energy from above down, inside out to others. I believe this is the way we are designed to be, channels of divine love. The love is already created and made perfect. All you have to do is open your heart and give the perfect love to everyone. The limiting beliefs you formed out of the hurt and rejection you experienced in relationships are the only thing that can stop you from freely giving and flowing this love to everyone you meet. Some limiting beliefs that validate you showing love by taking instead of giving include beliefs that the love I give is toxic and causes pain or depression in the ones I love. The belief that my love isn't good enough. The belief no one wants the love I have to give. The belief if you love someone, you must take on their pain. The belief I only deserve loving attachment with others if I take responsibility for their pain. The belief my loving attachment with others is dependent on me taking all the bad stuff. Flowing this perfect love validates your relationship with the divine and your need for attachment with other people. When you are giving the energy of perfect love, it flows from the divine down through the top of your head, and then like a river, it gushes out of your heart toward others. In this state of energetic flow, you don't have to be afraid of taking on pain, toxicity, or contempt of anyone else. The love you give becomes the healer. It serves to raise your vibration as you fulfill one of your most basic needs, to attach to others in love. It also serves to raise the vibration of the one you give love to, offering an opportunity for healing in both of you. Key forgiveness statements to release the pain you hold for others. I forgive myself for believing I can't love and heal my mom without feeling her pain and anger. I forgive myself for believing I am responsible for my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for believing I deserve my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for believing my only choice is my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for sacrificing my health, wholeness, and happiness for my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for holding on to my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for believing I can't let go of my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for believing I am my mom's pain and anger. I forgive myself for choosing behavior just to prove I am my mom's pain and anger. I forgive my mom for choosing pain and anger. I forgive myself for choosing pain and anger. I give permission to my mom to forgive me for failing to love her in a healthy way. I give permission to my mom to forgive me for using her behavior as an excuse to withhold love and healing from her and myself. I give myself permission to sacrifice my mom's anger and pain and reclaim my love as a healing power for my mom and myself. I give myself permission to feel loving and forgiving, allowing my mom to be responsible for her own pain and anger. Thanks for listening. You can learn more about emotional polarity technique through my book, The Forgiveness Doctor, available at Amazon.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like us on Facebook, and go get your EPT training at EPTworks.com. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor, sharing with you a more imaginative initiative in emotional healthcare. Until next time, listen, love, give. EPT works.